meatball and polenta casserole. I'm making the meatballs now. I've got a mixture of ground beef, pork, and breadcrumbs, and I'm gonna add a lot of Parmesan cheese, a bunch of chopped parsley. I'm gonna add a couple of eggs, and this helps, along with the breadcrumbs, to bind the meatballs together. Just pour that in. And then quite a bit of minced garlic, which is a must. I'll add just a little bit of salt and pepper. And then it's gonna need just a little bit of milk to make it mix together. And I have found no better tool than my hands for mixing together a meatball mixture. So I am gonna go for it. And I'll just keep mixing until it is one nice homogenized mixture. Okay, this mixture looks fantastic. It's got a lot of bright green parsley in it. So I'm gonna use a scoop, and this will help ensure that the meatballs are all pretty much the same size. All right, that's one. I've got 19 more to roll. I'm rolling along with the freezer casserole. I'm gonna make a sauce right in the pan that I'm gonna bake it in. I just drizzled in some olive oil, and I'm gonna tear some fresh oregano leaves along with some basil leaves. Now, on top of this, I'm gonna sprinkle some more chopped garlic. There's garlic in the meatballs and the sauce. And then I drained a can of diced tomatoes, and I'm just gonna add the tomatoes. They're gonna bake up really rich and wonderful in the oven. I'll add just a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I'm gonna stir it right in the pan. What is the world coming to? Now I've just gotta add in the meatballs. I'm gonna bake the meatballs and sauce at 425 degrees for 15 minutes, and then I'll move on to the next stage. I've been moving forward with the polenta for the casserole. I've made the basic polenta recipe, so let me tell you where I'm up to. For the polenta base, I added 4 tablespoons of salted butter to a large pot with a thinly sliced onion, 2 minced garlic cloves, a tablespoon of minced fresh oregano, stirred everything together, and cooked it for 5 minutes. Then I added 4 cups of chicken stock, a cup of water, brought it to a boil, whisked in 2 cups of coarse cornmeal, and then cooked the polenta for 20 minutes, stirring it frequently until thickened. It's looking really good, so now I have a few more things to add to make it just over-the-top delicious. Quite a bit of heavy cream. Some people find adding cream to polenta to be a little bit controversial. I'm not one of those people. I think cream makes everything more delicious. I also think whole milk ricotta makes everything more delicious. So I'm adding a good amount of that, along with some Parmesan and salt and pepper. Okay, this looks about as perfect as it possibly can look. So now I'm gonna get those meatballs out of the oven. Already smells so good. Look at how delicious this looks. And if you didn't want to make a casserole out of it, you could just serve these meatballs with the polenta and just have everybody dish it up themselves. So to assemble the casserole, the first thing I've got to do is get all the meatballs and sauce out of the pan. So I am going to use the same pan to assemble the casserole. And I love that because I'll wind up with all the flavor from the meatballs in the bottom of the pan. So all of this heavenly polenta goes in first. And now I'm going to use a slotted spoon to get the meatballs and put them on top of the polenta. I like to sprinkle on some Parmesan, and I'm going to pack up the sauce separately. So while I do this, let me tell you how to freeze, bake, and serve this masterpiece. Freezing first, I'll put the plastic and foil-wrapped casserole into the freezer along with the sauce. Then when it comes to baking, I'll put the unwrapped and thawed casserole in the oven at 425 degrees for 40 minutes. Then serving, I'll pour the heated sauce into a pitcher, take the casserole out of the oven. Where have you been all my life? Sprinkle over grated Parmesan, along with chopped parsley.
So today we're making cheesy hash brown casserole. It's loaded with hash browns, cheddar, and sour cream. It makes the perfect cheesy, creamy bite. It's so easy to make because it's just a dump, stir, and bake. All right, so before we get started, let's thaw out a 16-ounce bag of hash browns, preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and butter a 9x9 casserole dish. All right, let's get started. Let's shred 1 8-ounce block of sharp cheddar cheese. I love this hash brown casserole because it's super simple to make and it's extremely savory and it goes well with any breakfast dish. I even eat it for dinner. Casseroles in the South go hand in hand. Buttery, cheesy, well seasoned. Push your cheese to the side and let's grate 1 medium yellow onion. Cut off your root. Discard. Use your box shredder to grate your onion. Be careful not to get those hands. All right. Scoot your onions to the side. Let's chop a 1/4 cup of chives. All right, guys, we are working with double onions. Chives are not, of course, is not as oniony as a medium yellow onion. Chives just add an additional oniony flavor to it. And a chive, of course, is a milder onion flavor. All right, so let's reserve a little bit of our chives for the garnish and reserve about a 1/2 cup of your cheddar cheese for the topping. Okay, we're gonna put the rest in the bowl. Okay. Let's clean up our cutting board. To the bowl, let's add our 16-ounce bag of thawed hash browns. Let's add a 1/2 cup of sour cream. A 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. 1½ teaspoons of sweet paprika, a little heat from the cayenne and a little smokiness from the sweet paprika, a heavy pinch of kosher salt, 2 pinches, and a heavy pinch of cracked black pepper. Okay. Let's add 1 egg. A casserole wouldn't be a casserole without an egg. Let's give it a mix. And that's it. That's all the ingredients that go into this cheesy hash brown casserole. So simple, but the flavors are going to be incredible. And if you want, you can also add a little meat to this. I suggest using some country ham. You can use breakfast sausage, you can use ham, you can use bacon. I mean, it's the ultimate breakfast casserole. This is mixed up. Let's pour our mixture into a 9x9 casserole dish that has been buttered. The reason we buttered our 9x9 casserole dish is to make sure that, of course, it doesn't stick, but it also gives our cheesy hash brown casserole crispy edges. I love crispy edges. As a matter of fact, I only eat the edges. Let's add our reserved 1/2 cup of cheddar cheese. Spread it evenly across. All right, that's it. Let's head over to the oven. All right, let's pop this into our oven that's preheated to 400 degrees. Hit pause and meet me back here in 45 minutes. All right, it's been 45 minutes. Let's take our casserole out of the oven. Ooh, look at that. Cheesy and golden brown. All right, let this cool for 5 minutes. Hit pause and meet me back here. We're gonna try our cheesy hash brown casserole together. All right, I am ready to try this. I know you are too. You can cut them into slices if you're serving it for your family, but it's just me right now, so I'm gonna cut a generous slice for myself. Oh, look at that. Okay. Add a little sour cream on top, dollop, and top it off with more chives. Oh. Let's give it a taste. Oh, that's incredible. That's good. It's cheesy, it's tangy, it's buttery, it's ooey gooey creamy. This is a comforting Southern dish, and man, oh man.
I have some butter melting in a big skillet, and to it, I'm gonna add a whole onion that I've chopped. And I like this dish because I'm starting it in my big skillet and all the ingredients are just gonna go right in here. So it's pretty easy cleanup. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt to these. Now I'm gonna add my garlic to the pan. And let the house start to fill with this amazing smell. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna add is a 1/4 cup of flour, and the combination of the flour and the butter is gonna make a roux, and that's gonna thicken up my sauce. Add 2 cups of milk, but I'm gonna add it in batches because I want it to thicken up and get really smooth. If I add it too quickly, the sauce could break. So I'm stirring this really well to make sure that that roux incorporates into the milk, and then the roux is gonna thicken up my milk. This is a step that you wanna stir almost continuously. And when it coats the back of a spoon, that's how you know it's thick enough. Now I'll add my chicken bouillon to the mixture, and this is gonna make it taste like cream of chicken soup. I'm gonna add some dried thyme, which to me is the signature flavor of chicken and biscuits. I'm gonna add a couple of pinches of crushed red pepper, just for a little heat. I have some chopped chicken breast here. Chicken thigh will work too. And this has been cut into bite-sized pieces, and I'm gonna cook it right in my mixture, so it's gonna soak up all of that delicious flavor. I'm gonna cook the chicken for about 10 to 15 minutes until it's totally cooked and no longer pink. I am going to add a block of cream cheese. It's light cream cheese though, so it's good for you. This is just a block of frozen spinach that has thawed and drained. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna add, I have some canned artichokes. I've got them drained here. And now I'm gonna add some parsley and fresh cracked pepper to this. Okay, so I'm making mini casseroles today, and I'm gonna put them in these little foil dishes because they're cute and I don't wanna have to worry about reheating a giant casserole. I'm gonna add a ladle full of mixture to my foil tin. And now I'll top it with the biscuit. Okay, now I'm gonna brush it with egg wash on top so that it gets shiny and golden. And then I'll add some fresh black pepper and some flaky salt. I love these big salt crystals. They add a nice crunch. And I'm gonna cover it with foil, and then it'll be ready for the freezer. And now I'm gonna build the rest. These can go in the freezer for up to 3 months. To reheat them, just peel off any stickers and pop them in the oven at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes. And then uncover them and continue baking for 20 minutes longer until they're golden brown and heated through.
Chicken, mushroom, and wild rice casserole. So we got our rice, it's rinsed, it's ready to go here. I got some warm stock going, I got some chicken, I got all the accoutrement. But we started with some butter, some shallot, and some nice quartered mushrooms, right? You can use a little baby bellas, the porcinis, whatever. White mushrooms, whatever you can get. I just like to keep them thick because we're gonna cook this a while. I want them to maintain some of that integrity here. That shallot got super caramelized, deep, rich color on the mushrooms as well. That's all developing flavors. Next, a little bit of garlic. Now you wanna move quickly, make sure when you put your garlic in there, you got your liquid near, because once that garlic cooks, it's done, it's gonna burn. We don't want that. Next, we're gonna deglaze with a little bit of sherry.
Sherry, bold, with a casserole?
Hey, man, this Midwest is not simple stuff. We're flavorful, hearty people.
Think of chicken marsala.
Yep.
It's halfway to marsala.
Exactly. I mean, this with anything is great. Next, you take your wild rice. While that's simmering, kind of toast it up, and the remnants of that sherry and that shallot. It's gonna soak in there, super flavorful right now. Wild rice takes a long time.
Yes.
It does.
Okay?
It's like 40 minutes, right?
Exactly. It's very hearty, but it's worth it. The payoff, I promise you. It's so good for you. It's such a different chew and earthy flavor than your normal long grain rice or basmati or anything like that. So we're gonna let that go, toast up a little bit. It's sucking up all that beautiful booze. Now we got our warm stock. And this is about 5 cups. You need about 4 cups for this is perfect, but just in case you got some.
Evaporation.
1 bay leaf, 1 little sachet of fresh thyme. Mushroom, thyme, sherry go hand in hand with that shallot. Wonderful flavor combination. We got the stock boiling here. We are gonna cover it, okay? 1 hour.
What's the ratio?
What's the ratio?
Like a 3 to 1, right?
Yeah,
No,
like a
it's
cup
like-
of rice to 4 cups of
4 to 1.
stock. The absorption level is off the charts, okay? So this is going in the oven for an hour. Thanks, Jeffrey. I got one ready to go here. Bottom one, please, buddy. You cover it in the oven, right? Season it as well, right? Plenty of salt, which I, neglected to do, but obviously season it. So
By the way-
heavy. I think it got heavier from all the absorption. And this is what it looks like when it absorbs all that beautiful stock and flavor. These grains of rice kind of start splitting open. You could see the whites in there. We could take the bay leaf out now. We don't need to wrestle with that later. Now we layer the second portion, which is the meat. You're not having grains without meat in the middle. There's always going to be meat on the table. So we're going to use wonderful chicken breast here. And I'm going to mix a blend of spices here, some cracked pepper. We got, of course, some kosher salt and some coriander.
Yum.
Oh, I love
And this is
coriander.
just like a simple little spice mixture, but I want to coat everything because we're going to bake in this. I don't want the chicken to get lost. And I also just don't want it screaming white when we take it out of there, right? I want it to look like it's caked in flavor, and we are going to hit with a little olive oil, okay? You can spread it around nice, and then we're going to let it rain, right? You could do this in a bowl.
I love them.
And then, so I'm just gonna pinch it, simply, but total dust. All right, we're gonna flip this over, do the other end, right? That olive oil will make it stick, and then we can just hit the rest. But the other side is our presentation side, so we wanna make sure that's the prettiest. This is kind of that interior of the breast. But that is all additional flavor. Little dried cranberries.
Gotta have them.
Gotta
What?
have little sweetness in there. They're gonna plump up real nice. We're gonna mix that up,
They go back in the oven?
right? Maybe a little just to, because this is gonna cook for another 20 to 25 minutes. So we want that chicken to get to 165, okay? Just because it's a casserole doesn't mean you can't tempt your meat in there, right? Look at that, beautiful. And we're gonna just kind of,
I mean, I guess it's technically kind of like a smothered chicken,
exactly.
which could be a smothered chicken casserole.
Yeah.
Look
I
at
mean,
how.
when I think smothered chicken, I obviously think cream and
I mean, chicken and rice. I mean, I think I've grown up eating chicken and rice my whole life. Usually it's roasted, but there's always rice on the side, usually pilaf. This is far more interesting.
One more thing here, Sonny, I'm putting my final touches on here. You're gonna love this. We're gonna shingle some fresh lemon slices, just kind of free form in there. Give it a little artistic flourish here. You don't see in a lot of casseroles,
Nor
you
in
know?
Minnesota.
yeah, but I like the
Look at that.
bitterness the lemon's gonna give everything. I actually
Little
love that
acid.
flavor note.
Help me out there, friend.
Up or down?
We'll
no
do the
pepper.
upski, because I got one ready to go here.
I took a peek. I snuck a peek.
Oh, man.
Oh, you did a left arm uppage.
And look at this beautiful chicken
Oh.
and wild rice casserole.
That is
Or
delightful.
bake, all in one sheet here, and you see kind of the crust that formed on there.
You can
Look at-
serve
you
it just
see-
like that, right? You just
That's
go.
it. You don't need anything else.
Boom.
Maybe some crusty bread with this would
Crusty
be
bread,
nice.
Yeah.
little cilantro.
Yeah, and I like that because the wild rice doesn't feel heavy. It's not like when you eat a big bowl of, say, basmati rice or whatever. And really, you kind of peel-offed this a little bit.
Yes, I
'cause
He
it's
did. He
baked.
peel-offed it. That's a verb,
People aren't
right?
peel-offing enough these days. You can hit the rest of it when you present it with just a little parsley, nothing fancy, right?
I love how plump the cranberries got.
So nice. We're gonna go tapered
Oh.
at first. I
Oh,
knew
man.
it's
Oh,
juicy.
God.
Good.
That coriander.
Making me hungry.
You're like, don't omit. First of all, do not skip the coriander because it gives you that wild, feral vibe in here. You know, I feel like a wildcat. Chicken's cooked perfectly. The mushrooms and the toothsomeness of this rice is fantastic. So we're pouring a couple cups of good chicken stock in here, low sodium. The zest and juice from a couple lemons, right? Because you want that strong
need it.
lemony
You need
flavor. A little cornstarch to kind of help thicken it up there in the oven when it cooks. Beautiful. So now we got a little fresh garlic in there. Another traditional flavor of that, Greek-style lemon soup, a little fresh dill.
Oh, yeah.
Put it in there.
It's gonna be bananas.
And to bump up the fat in here, just a little bit of melted butter. We're just gonna whisk this together. We got our sauce. It was that easy, right? A lot of stuff we already have in the house. Of course, a little salt and pepper. So let me get my starch here, which is that Orzo, if you don't mind, right? And this cooks a lot quicker than rice a lot of times. It's actually not a grain, it's a pasta, so you wanna make sure you don't overcook it. It can get mushy. We're just gonna put it all on the bottom there. We got this beautifully seasoned sauce in here. We're just gonna pour that directly on there. All right, and all kind of settle. No need to get too crazy with trying to get in there even. Just give it one little stir. Which we're just using 4 whole chicken breasts, about 2 pounds. And we're gonna season this with a little coriander, some black pepper, and some salt. We're gonna mix that up and just hit every side of that chicken with it.
Coriander is so underutilized, man. It's just so floral and green.
It really is.
All
We're just
that.
gonna nestle it right in there.
It's gonna be good, Jeff.
Jeff, it's gonna be good.
It's gonna really look nice too. Great presentation.
Because I see those lemon slices.
Yeah, you know what I'm gonna do with these lemon slices?
Yep.
We're gonna kind of shingle these in here. And it's good to go in the oven, 375 for about 35 minutes. All right, a little bit of fresh parsley on top there. Maybe a little lemon on the side if you want to squeeze some extra lemon.
That looks so pretty, Jeff.
And you can, obviously, this is perfect for a family of 4, but if you want to like kind of cut it.
This is a classy casserole.
And you'll see it's got the creaminess of that soup without the egg in there, right?
What's wrong with eggs?
No, nothing. I'm just like, we didn't have to start cooking eggs in it.
Oh, I see what
Just
you're
gotta be, it was simple. Beautiful.
Is that for me?
I'm gonna let you have a knife.
Right? It smells lemony.
That's bright.
Lemon orzo, perfect, on point, exceptionally cooked, and also it made, if you see this, it just made its own sauce.
I'm gonna make a green bean casserole, but I'm gonna make it my way. All right, I'm gonna thinly slice 1 large red onion, and I'm gonna marinate it or have it sit in buttermilk for a couple of hours until it's time to fry. And the reason I like for my onions to sit in buttermilk, of course, so the flour and the dredge will stick to the onions. All right, so I have my onions here, thinly sliced. I'm gonna add some buttermilk just to submerge it into the bowl. I'm gonna let these hang out in the fridge until it's time to dredge and fry. All right, put that in there. So my green bean casserole starts off with fresh green beans that I'm snapping. You gotta take the ends off, the rough ends. And I'm just gonna boil them really quick, get them nice and soft. I'm gonna make a bechamel sauce with a little garlic powder, some milk, some sherry, which is typical in low country cuisine. I'm gonna bake it off and put crispy red onions on top. I'm snapping about 2 pounds of green beans. And this will be enough for a 9x13 casserole. I'm gonna boil them for a few minutes till they get a little soft. Remember, I'm gonna finish cooking it in the oven. While that's boiling, I have some baby bella mushrooms here. I'm gonna add it to my casserole. So there's green beans and mushrooms. I'm just gonna saute them in my cast iron skillet here with a little bit of butter. And when I saute them, I'm just gonna draw out some of that water because mushrooms do have a tendency to carry a lot of water. Hit it with some salt, help extract some of the water out of the mushrooms. I know when mushrooms are done cooking when the color starts to turn from this kind of like a grayish white to like a darker brown color. I want to grab my green beans because they're done, drain them and get them on some ice to stop the cooking process. Don't want them to cook anymore because I do have to put them in the oven. So the mushrooms look great. I'm gonna take them out and start my bechamel sauce, which is basically a cream sauce. I'm basically making a cream of mushroom sauce. The start of a bechamel sauce is normally butter and flour, then milk. All right, so I'm gonna add 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of flour. That's how it gets nice and thick. And I'm basically making a roux. Add a little bit of my sherry in there. I'd say about a 1/4 cup of sherry. Typically in a bechamel sauce, you will not find sherry. Just wanna give it a dry type of wine flavor. I'm gonna add in about 2 cups of milk. And you actually wanna use a whisk because you gotta break down the flour, otherwise you'll have clumps of flour in your bechamel. Now I wanna season my bechamel with cracked black pepper and some garlic powder. Starting to smell that. It's gonna take about 5 minutes until the sauce gets nice and thick. I wanna actually add back my mushrooms at this time. So this is perfect texture that I'm looking for. It just coats the spoon. I wanna turn it off. Let me grab my onions, super simple dredge. I'm gonna use about a cup of flour, a heavy teaspoon of my all-purpose seasoning. Just in case you don't know, I got some sweet paprika, some onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. So just covering the onions in the flour. I have some oil that I have nice and hot back there in a cast iron skillet. I'm just gonna drop it in the oil, fry it up, super simple. Drop it like it's hot, because it is. They're golden brown. I'm gonna drop them off here. Got my green beans. So I'm gonna assemble the casserole, put the cream of mushroom in there, bake it off for a little bit, and then put the onions on later. I want it to still stay crispy on top. I'm gonna add my cream of mushroom right into this casserole dish. Mix it up. All right, I'm gonna pop my green bean casserole in the oven. Again, the oven is at 350. I wanna let this bake uncovered for about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, my green bean casserole is done. Oh man, look at that. Nice and bubbly and creamy. Ooh, that smells good. Last but not least, add those fried onions on top. And I like a lot of onion. I'm gonna put all of the onions on top there.
Butternut squash pasta casserole. It is so hearty and delicious. So to keep things easy, I'm adding a bag of butternut squash from the freezer. You can totally use fresh instead. And then in addition to the squash, I'm gonna add a quart of chicken broth, low sodium, and I'm cranking the heat because I want this to cook until the butternut squash is totally tender. This is a very fall-friendly recipe, but since you can buy butternut squash in the freezer section of the grocery store year-round, you can totally make this whenever you want. Whenever you want. Salt and pepper. Okay, so the butternut squash is gonna cook for 5 minutes until it's soft. Watch the magic happen. I'm gonna turn this into a squashy liquid, which is kind of strange. It doesn't sound all that good, but trust me. And you can puree it as much or as little as you want to. You can make it a totally smooth puree, or it can be sort of a chunky puree. I like things with some texture. All right, just about done. I see some chunks of butternut in there, but I'm gonna leave them, I think it'll make the casserole more interesting. Okay, so this is so cool because I'm actually gonna pull this casserole together in the casserole pan. So I already cooked some penne, and watch this. This is basically the liquid for the casserole, but it's kind of like butternut squash mac and cheese, you know? It's gonna be delicious, trust me.
It'll be great.
Okay, and then I've got a few things to add. Some roasted red pepper, frozen peas,
Wow.
and goat cheese. It kind of combines with the butternut squash, and oh my gosh, the texture and the consistency of this casserole is amazing. Stirring it right in the casserole dish. And this pasta was actually kind of cooked to not quite al dente, so the extra liquid in the casserole will keep the casserole from becoming dry when it bakes, because the pasta is going to keep absorbing some of that liquid. Oh. Ooh, so pretty so far. Now this is a really cool little ingredient to add. I grated cauliflower. So instead of using like a breadcrumb or something, I'm doing cauliflower, and that makes it more veggie forward, more healthy. And then on top of the cauliflower, just for a little extra flavor, some salt and pepper. I love this casserole, and I love casseroles that you can assemble right in the pan. I don't have a whole bunch of different bowls that I'm mixing in. All right, now I've got a whole bunch of mozzarella, since Paige was quick to point out that there wasn't enough cheese in this casserole. And then Parmesan, of course, on top of the mozzarella. Tons of different ingredients going on, but they're all very simple. And then parsley, and I'll save a little bit to sprinkle on at the end. I think this is gonna be amazing. What do you think?
I think so.
All right, let's get this in the oven. We're gonna bake it at 375 degrees for 40 to 45 minutes, and I am so sorry that you have to wait that long. Oh, actually, you don't have to wait that long. Look, 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 look.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. That looks incredible. Check it out, you guys.
Wow. All that cheese.
Wow, it looks so good.
I'm gonna make my cheesy meatball sub casserole. In the pan right here, this is very easy. I don't say easy for nothing. I've got onion and green bell pepper and a little bit of olive oil. Hit it with some salt so all of the veggies can get nice and tender. And then once they're close to super tender, that's when you can add in the garlic. You don't wanna brown the garlic, so I get that in. All right, so then over the top, I put some Italian seasoning. Let me come over here and show you the meatballs of the meatball sub. Okay, the reason I say this is easy, we're not gonna make the meatballs. You go straight to the freezer section and get them. There are so many different types. Italian flavored meatballs is which I'm using right now. They have really come up in the game in the freezer section. So this is a pound, and what I've done is you can see right here, I've just cut them in half. They're already cooked, you can see. So really when you're using them for anything else, if you're actually making a standard meatball sub, you could just use these, heat them up, and get them into your bread. All right, so vegetables, looking good, smelling good. All right, another store-bought shortcut, some marinara sauce. Get that in there. Now, if you're smart, you get some arrabbiata sauce, right? A little bit spicy if you like that, and it goes really well with the onions and the green bell peppers. So a pound of your meatballs is gonna get mixed with a pound of cheese. And I like to do Monterey, but you can do mozzarella, and that's what this is right here. Just get that right in. Now, it seems like a lot of cheese because it's thinly shredded, but don't worry about it. It's gonna melt down and really hold the casserole together and give us some gooey moments at the end. All right, now, right over the top. Didn't really do much work for this, right? Just saute some veggies and get them right in. Nice and steamy out here. All right, and then just get in here and give it a nice stir. Always lose some to the cause when I'm stirring. That's why I have dogs at home. All right, so I've got my dish that's already been sprayed. You can butter as well, but cooking spray, why not? And then just get this in. Look at that, cheese. You already know what's gonna happen when this cooks down. And it's mozz, come on. I'm just gonna level it a little bit and then get my topping on. Get excited when I see these meatballs coming together. All right, topping, very simple. This is my store-bought shortcut. Croutons, they're already made. You can find some garlic flavored ones, even better. Plus, actually, oh, they came out of the bag. Actually, if you have some leftover croutons from making them at home, perfect. Now I'm gonna show you what to do to get them over the top. Now you think about it, you got your meatball parm or your meatball sub. So you've got the sauce, you got the cheese, you got the meatballs, and usually I like, you know, the peppers and the onions over the top, so we got all that going on. Now we just need the bread. So, in a bag, just hook up the bread. All right, don't go down too far to like breadcrumb consistency, still want a couple of boulders left, and that's it. Just get in here and sprinkle. Even distribution. Remember, these are already made, so they've got that buttery, garlicky flavor, just like the bread, good old Italian bread. All right, breadcrumbs over the top. Now, I've got my grill set to 350 degrees. Obviously, you can do your oven inside at 350 degrees. And this really just has to come together and let the cheese melt and those meatballs come up to temperature. So about 20, 25 minutes, and it's good to go. I'm gonna get it in and show you what it looks like. Oh, yeah. All right. Indirect heat when you put it in the grill, so that means the heat would be turned on over here. You put the plate or the tray right here. So I'm gonna make sure that the heat is off on this side and then turn it on over here when I take this off. Oh, look at that. And here you have it, my very easy meatball sub casserole. Come on now. I always like to go in towards the corner and then create my serving size. Look at this, huh? Little cheese pool right there. Meatball sub goodness. Look at that. Team texture with the croutons on top.
Seafood casserole. So I have a whole bunch of cooked shrimp that's chopped into little bits. And I'm gonna add some lump crab meat and a little bit of decadence here, some lobster meat right out of the claw. Look at this, it's incredible. Some chopped green bell pepper, bunch of chopped celery, and some sliced green onion. And then I'll just stir this mixture of seafood and veggies until it's all mixed together. So now I'm gonna add some other scrumptious ingredients, a bunch of mayonnaise. You know this recipe is from the 70s when you see this amount of mayonnaise going in. But this is basically the liquid of the casserole. And it's also what makes the casserole so incredible. And then a good spoonful of Dijon mustard or any sort of grainy mustard. And then just a little touch of sherry. This is optional. In fact, my mom's original recipe did not have sherry in it, but I have found with kind of creamy casseroles like this, just a little touch of sherry gives it the most incredible flavor. And then, of course, bringing it into the current day, dash of hot sauce, a few dashes of Worcestershire. And then for seasoning, I'm gonna add some Old Bay seasoning because it is a seafood casserole, and Old Bay seasoning was made for seafood. And then salt, and you wanna add plenty of black pepper, a couple of good sprinkles. All right, now I've got to mix all this together. Now, the casserole goes into the casserole dish. Now, look how creamy this is. But I would like to point out that there is no cheese in this casserole. What is the world coming to? What's gotten into me? I don't even recognize myself. So I'm gonna cover it with plastic wrap. And then I'm gonna pop it in the fridge for an hour. I'm gonna top the whole thing with potato chips. Yeehaw! These are just regular, straight up potato chips, crushed. They're not like finely crushed to a crumb. They're still in big chunks. And as you can see, I am being very, very generous. The recipe says 1 bag of potato chips. Never mind that bags of potato chips now are probably 3 times the size as they were in the 70s. But you know what? I like to follow instructions. It's the recipe's fault. All right, so I'm gonna put this into a 350-degree oven and I'll bake it for about 30 minutes until it's nice and bubbly. It's all seafood. It's shrimp, crab meat, and lobster mixed with a creamy mixture.
My Brussels sprout casserole, which is comforting and decadent, and the whole thing gets covered in crispy, salty onions. Plus, it's a snap to make. I just throw everything into a pot and bake. So I've got this pot heating over medium heat. I'm gonna add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. I've got my 2 pounds of Brussels sprouts here that are quartered. And for me, Brussels sprouts have always been the perfect Thanksgiving vegetable, not the green beans. Brussels sprouts are in season in Thanksgiving, so it just makes sense. I'll dump these right in. They're already starting to crackle and pop. And I'll stir them around and just let them get some color all over the outside. These are looking glossy and golden and gorgeous. I'm gonna add 4 tablespoons of butter now. There is no shortage of butter on Thanksgiving in our house. I'll let this melt. Okay, this smell is Thanksgiving now. It wasn't just Brussels sprouts, it's Brussels sprouts and butter. I've got some leeks, which I've soaked and rinsed, and these will add some nice sweetness. This is a lot of veggies, but they all cook down. I'll stir these around and let the leeks soak up that butter. I'll add a sprinkle of salt and some pepper. Oh my gosh, it smells so good right now. Thanksgiving perfume. Get on it. Okay, while these continue to soften, I'll add some sliced garlic and earthy thyme. There are so many delicious flavors in this dish. Now that my veggies are soft, I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of flour. And this is gonna combine with the butter and the oil to create a roux that's gonna thicken up my liquids. And it's gonna make this so creamy. I'm gonna stir this around and let it cook for about a minute so that that flour flavor can cook off. I'll add 2 cups of low sodium chicken stock and let everything thicken up and get cozy. All right, call me crazy, but I feel like the true MVP of Thanksgiving is heavy cream. It makes the vegetables better. You put it on the pumpkin pie. It's everywhere. I'm stirring an entire cup of heavy cream into this thing. And I've brought it to room temperature just so that it cooks evenly. It was looking great already. Now it's looking great plus. There's so much flavor in my hands right now. I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese that's been grated. That just adds that salty umami-ness. A couple of teaspoons of Dijon mustard will add that zippiness that makes Brussels sprouts sing. And lastly, some lemon zest. Let me stir this all together. Oh, that cream is really thickened up. This is so decadent. And now for the best part, the crispy fried onions. And I'm not gonna hold back here. I want a thick layer of crunchiness on top. I'll spread these out. This is beautiful. It's gonna get even more beautiful in the oven though. I'm gonna bake it at 400 degrees for 20 minutes until it's golden and bubbly around the edges. I'm gonna need my eating pans for this one.
Weeknight dinner that everyone is gonna love. You can't get any better than nacho cheese casserole. It's one of those dinners that completely disappears. There is never a crumb left. I'm starting with the sauce for the casserole. I added some vegetable oil to a skillet, and I'm adding some flour. I'm just gonna make a little bit of a roux, and that'll help it to be a nice, thick, rich sauce. I'm gonna whisk it just for a minute until the roux starts to turn a light golden brown. So now I'll add some liquid, 3 cups of low sodium chicken broth. And this was so hot that that roux is already gonna thicken this liquid up. I'm making 2 casseroles out of this deal, so I wanna have a lot of sauce. Now to this mixture, I'm gonna add 2 cans of enchilada sauce. One of them is just a standard can, 10 ounces, and the other one is a large can, 28 ounces. And now I'll stir this up. And I wanna give it a little seasoning with 1/2 teaspoon of ground cumin. I don't want it to be too strong, and the flavor of the chips I'm gonna use is very strong. So just a little cumin is all I need. Okay, I need to give the sauce a little time to heat and thicken up, so I'll add the meat to a separate skillet. I've got 3 pounds of ground beef, and it goes right in, along with some finely diced onion. Of course, some minced garlic has to show up, and I'll break this all up. I just need to cook the meat until it's brown. And I'm gonna make a cheese mixture for the casserole. Very simple, just a bunch of grated sharp cheddar. And I'm also using some pepper jack cheese. The sauce is done. So I'm gonna pour the sauce into the meat, just to make it all one big mixture. First, I'll put a layer of crushed nacho chips into the pans. They each get a layer of the beef mixture. Then comes the cheese, more chips, more beef, even more cheese, a final layer of chips, and you guessed it, more cheese. Now this one's for dinner tonight. Let me tell you how it's gonna play out. I'll cover the pan in foil and bake it at 350 degrees for 25 minutes. Then I'll take off the foil, give it another 15 minutes, then take it out, and top it with shredded romaine lettuce, diced Roma tomatoes, some sour cream, sliced black olives, and sliced green onions. Then with all the fixins piled on top, I'll spoon out a big helping and put it on a plate for dinner. How good is that gonna be? And what about this pan, you ask? I'm gonna cover it with foil and I'll pop it in the freezer and it'll be all ready for another day.
I'm making my easy, beefy, cheesy enchilada casserole. All right, I'm gonna start building up some of the base flavor for the red sauce for my enchiladas. I got some tomato paste. Just gonna get a couple of tablespoons in out of my can here. If you end up with tomato paste left over, do what I do. Just put it in a plastic bag and flatten it out and put it in the freezer so the next time you make a soup or a red sauce or your easy, beefy, cheesy enchilada, you can just kind of break off a piece like a brick. A lot simpler, and then you don't waste stuff the whole can. All right, so now I'm gonna stir this into my onions. Remember, I started with just a little bit of olive oil, some onions, and some salt so they could sweat out. It's okay to kind of jack up the heat on that right now. All right, now in this pan right here, remember I got my onions in. I minced up some garlic, put that in there as well with my yellow and my green bell pepper halves. To that, I'm gonna add some ground beef, 1.5 pounds. It's gonna go in because we're making beef enchiladas. You can do chicken, I don't know, you could do turkey if you like. Any kind of enchiladas you wanna make are just fine with me. A little onion powder goes in here. I know I have onions in here, but the powder, it just has like a more deeper, intense flavor. And then I'm gonna put some cumin in to both of my pans, both in the beef side and in my sauce. Ooh, ooh, don't go too far. Sprinkle it around. But you know, what I'm gonna add right now is something that I always have in my pantry, good for Spanish and Latin meals. It's kind of like the bouillon cube or packet of Latin cooking, and that's sazon. Let me tell you, so much stuff is in here. We've got some color going on with the achiote, saffron, there's cilantro in here, just a lot of goodness that's kind of like you just can't get anywhere else, so it's good to put one full packet in. I'm just gonna make this nice and brown, get some color on my ground beef here before I add in some of the beef broth. Of course, if you're doing chicken, you can add chicken broth. You can add veggie broth if you want, but I like to kind of get all the flavors in there. I'm gonna get my little can ready to go for my red sauce with my whole tomatoes. Really quick, I'm getting in my Roma tomatoes. Just went ahead and seeded them, and I'm getting them chopped down to size into the beefy part of my easy, beefy, cheesy enchilada casserole I'm gonna make here. All right, now on my red sauce side here, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a taste before I add my beef stock, but it started pretty much the same as I did the beefy side. Just a little bit of salt. I started with some onions, some garlic, sweated them down. Then I added some tomato paste and cooked it down to it was nice and golden, deep reddish brown. That's just gonna really help with the depth of flavor here. And of course, a whole can of peeled tomatoes with their juices. A little bit of broth over the top at the end here to kind of loosen it up. And this is gonna be perfect. Right down in your 13x9, get a nice big old ladle of the sauce. Look at that. Just move it around, make sure it completely covers everything. Then I've got my corn tortillas here. Overlap them a little bit, and then keep on moving down. And now right on top of this layer, I'm gonna go ahead and put some of the beef. See, just like layering up, just like layering up. Right over the top. Now don't use all of the beef, just about half of it. I'm gonna make 2 layers of meat, 3 layers of tortilla, and in between the layers of meat and tortilla, I'm gonna throw on some cheddar cheese and some Monterey Jack cheese, nice and oozy and cheesy. Easy, beefy, cheesy, enchilada casserole. Nice healthy sprinkle of cheddar cheese over the top here for my easy, beefy, cheesy enchilada casserole. Gonna get it right into my oven, 350 degrees for about, I say 30, 35 minutes. Layer upon layer of flavor there.
Next thing on the menu is the soul food classic. cream corn casserole. I'm using about 8 ears of corn, fresh corn, that I'm just cutting off the cob. Get all that good corn milk or just that starch that's inside the cob. That's gonna help get that casserole nice and creamy. So an easy way to cut the kernel off the cob is to get a big bowl, then get a smaller bowl, flip the bowl over to where the bottom is exposed, and put your ear of corn on top. And just using a chef's knife, just cut down on the cob. And so to get the milk out of the cob, just take the back of your chef's knife and just gently press down on it. You see all that milk coming out? So what I'm doing here is making my creamed corn. My butter is melted. I'm gonna add my corn. Right now I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of whole milk, a few pinches of salt, a little black pepper. Okay. Now I just need this to cook and kind of thicken up. And you know what? A little extra butter ain't ever hurt nobody. I'm gonna actually add a 1/2 stick of butter to this. I want this to be creamy and cheesy and buttery. Start off with boxed corn muffin mix. I'm adding in 1 cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese. This entire container of sour cream is gonna add a little tang to it. And 2 eggs. And I'm just whisking it until I see no more streaks of that cornmeal. Okay. Now to add that creamed corn. The consistency of this casserole is gonna be a little crunchy from those fresh kernels of corn, creamy, and it's gonna have a nice layer of brown cheese on top. I have a 9x13 casserole dish here that I've sprayed with some nonstick spray. Pour my mixture right into the casserole dish. And last but not least, I'm gonna top it off with some more cheddar cheese. Okay, my oven is preheated to 350. I'm gonna bake this uncovered for about 35 to 40 minutes, or until the top is nice and bubbly and golden brown.
Get the rest of these in. Do you mind stirring this up?
I would love to.
And I'm gonna get some noodles out of the pantry here, and my lychee, some thyme.
Oh, it smells good.
It's just, you know what? It's onions, a little bit of salt and pepper.
How come you didn't cry when you cut the onions?
I have these special tear ducts. Not at all. All right, I'm just gonna sprinkle over some of my dried thyme, whole leaf. All right, so I've got my water. It's salted, it's boiling. I'm gonna get my egg noodles in and cook them till they're al dente, like you said. So right now what I'm doing is I'm building up some flavor. Remember the cremini or the button mushrooms that we put in there?
Yes.
Our baby bellas. Sliced them up, put some thyme in there, a little bit of salt and pepper and some butter and a little bit of olive oil as well. And then we just went ahead and got them nice and tender, and it's a good time to add in some flour. Onions are in there as well. Now, the flour is going to help thicken it, of course. It's going to tighten it up, add a little bit of body to it before I hit it with the cream. And the good old yummy broth that's going to go in here. Chicken broth, of course, but if you don't have chicken broth, you can do vegetable broth. All right, in with the mushrooms and the flour is my twist, horseradish. This is going to give it a little...
Because you got the creaminess and then the horseradish type bite? Is that what you're looking for?
You are in there. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
And it's not enough horseradish to lose the whole dish?
It's not enough to lose the whole dish, the whole flavor. It's not going to make your nose hairs singe or anything like that. It's just going to add that little bit of something. Kind of like a little pinch of salt in a good chocolate chip cookie. It's going to be like, what is that that's making this everything right? You know what I mean? And that's what it's going to do. All right, so I got my egg noodles all drained out, al dente. Make sure they are nice and to the tooth. And then to my pan right here, I'm gonna add in some of my chicken stock. It's a good time to do that because the flour is kind of cooked out, the flavor. You'll know it's right when it looks really gummy on your vegetables. And then I'm just gonna add that stock. And this is gonna thicken up really quick for us. And then I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of that heavy cream. And that's gonna bring it to the nice cream of mushroom texture that we're used to without all the preservatives. Right into the tuna noodle casserole is the egg noodles, nice and al dente. And then behind your back back. I didn't show you, but I got the green peas in here.
Yeah.
They're frozen, the frosted, thawed, all that good stuff. We tasted it, pretty good.
Yeah, it's
we don't
very
need
good.
any salt.
Nope.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and stir this up, but you know what I really need to do
Sure.
is get the tuna in.
Okay.
And then, hey, Anthony,
What?
do you wanna shred up some cheese with me too?
All of it?
I'd say about a cup and a half or so. I'll let you know.
What are you thinking?
That's perfect.
That's it?
Oh, good, good, good. All right, I'm gonna get this in here, and I'm just gonna
Take this
stir
also?
everything together. Yeah, bring
Okay.
that over, baby. This is gonna help it be nice and creamy.
Yeah, it looks great.
Along
love
with the heavy
cheese.
cream in
Love it.
here.
Looks great.
Got the chicken stock.
Yep.
Yum.
Hey, do you wanna stir this up for me
Sure.
really quick? And then
Absolutely.
I'm gonna wow you with a bread topping.
How can you do that, Sonny?
Well, it's very simple. Yeah, I hate to take credit for it, but it's just panko crumbs, a little bit of olive oil,
Yeah.
and some salt. That's gonna go right over the top of this. I'm gonna get this into the oven, 375 degrees. It's only gonna take 35 minutes. A little bit of olive oil. I'm going to reach in here really quick.
That really does look good.
Right? It looks
Stir
good,
this
Rob.
up.
Yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna get this into the oven.
Yeah.
And here is
So turn on the
tuna.
lights.
That smells delicious, Sonny.
Broccoli rice casserole is a cherished Thanksgiving staple. I started by sauteing some finely minced onion with a little bit of garlic in butter. It's nice and soft. So I'm gonna move forward with making a scrumptious sauce. I'm gonna thicken it up with flour, about 1/4 a cup. And I let the flour cook just a little bit. So I'm gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of mustard powder and 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. So I'll stir those in. Ooh, that cayenne, I kind of got a little whiff of it. So now I've got 3 cups of whole milk. I'm gonna turn the heat up just a little bit, and I'll stir the onion and flour mixture while I pour in the milk. Now I need to let this heat up, and it's gonna bubble up and thicken. That'll take about 3 minutes. Amazing. I'm gonna make the sauce a little more creamy by adding some cream cheese. I'm gonna kind of break it up as I add it. I'm gonna add some grated Parmesan. Okay, that is looking good. So I'll grab some salt and pepper. And I like to add quite a bit of pepper. You really can't add too much pepper. At least in my neck of the woods, you can't. And I've got some paprika, and I'll just add about 1/2 teaspoon. So I'll mix that in. So much flavor. Okay, now the cheeses for broccoli rice casserole are very important. You've got to start with good old processed cheese. I cut it into cubes. There is nothing creamier than this cheese when you add it to a sauce. Now I've got some freshly grated sharp cheddar, and I'm gonna add about 1.5 cups, and I'll save the rest to go over the casserole when it goes into the oven. So you're probably wondering, well, what about the broccoli? That goes in now. I've got 8 small heads. Make sure all that broccoli is coated in the cheesy goodness. Okay, it's pretty thick, but that's exactly what you want. So I'm gonna add some sliced pimentos. Pimentos are something I have in my pantry all the time because there are so many casseroles that I'll just kind of add a jar to. This is really looking perfect. So I'll turn off the heat. And now it's time to assemble the casserole, which is so much fun. I've got some cooked long grain rice, and I'm gonna add 1/2 of this bowl to the casserole. Spread out the rice, and then 1/2 of this luscious broccoli cheese sauce goes in, and then the rest of the rice goes on. The rest of the sauce, and the rest of the grated sharp cheddar. Now I'm gonna put this into the oven at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. I'm gonna be heading to church soon, and I cannot wait because that means I'm gonna get to eat this beautiful broccoli rice casserole at the potluck. How good does this look? I cannot recommend this enough. You dive in, and at this point, words fail me. Looks so good. Obviously, at a potluck, there'd be a lot more food to go with it, but I just wanted to show you its deliciousness.
My experimental chef in me decided to tackle a very critical classical American dish that I actually never ate growing up, the green bean casserole. Mom, I forgive you. I start by blanching a pound of green beans, and I season it, as I say, with salt. Now, I didn't use fancy little French green beans. I just used straight up good old American string beans. This is just a quick blanch. I go straight into an ice bath. Going straight from hot to cold, you wanna make sure you're really cooling down your vegetables. That's how you get that extra crispy texture, and you keep that vibrant green color. And then I just spread them out to drain them to get any excess water out of them. Now, there's not only green beans in a green bean casserole, there's also one of my favorite supermarket friends, white button mushrooms. I start with just 12 ounces of cleaned white button mushrooms. And while I slice these, I'll just heat up a tablespoon of butter. Then I just slice up my mushrooms. And then I drop the mushrooms in. And this is nice and easy. Season those mushrooms with a little bit of salt. And to give them a little pizzazz, 2 cloves of garlic, which I'll just grate and drop right into the mushrooms. I'll just let this cook down, and you'll see right away the liquid from the mushrooms will start seeping out. The smell of the garlic with the butter and the mushrooms is just gonna start to really come together. But to give it a little kick, I'm gonna add a teaspoon of Dijon mustard and a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Sift in 3 tablespoons of flour. It's gonna bring this green bean casserole together and give it nice body. Give it a nice stir. I really feel those mushrooms have cooked a little and they're just begging for a little richness. And I've chosen 2 very good weapons, sour cream and heavy cream. Measure out a cup, and maybe a little more because it's Thanksgiving, and drop that right in there. And to top that off, 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. Okay, so once the sour cream and the cream have had a minute to melt down, I'm gonna add my green beans in. I just love how these green beans just liven this up. I really feel this meal coming together. It's one of those times when I take a little Thanksgiving time out and just make a little garnish to make something extra special. So I'll take just 3 shallots that I peeled and broke into rounds. See that? To make them nice and crispy, I'll just drizzle them with a little flour. And to that, for a little panache, a pinch of the cayenne. These crispy little suckers are gonna go on top of our green bean casserole and create that crispy texture. And now, we fry. So I always test one first. And it should come up to the surface, nice and gentle. I love that sound. So you're putting together a green bean casserole. I'm gonna get the turkey. Don't forget those crispy shallots on top, though. That's that finishing touch.
I've just got some onions in the skillet with a little olive oil, and I just threw them in to get them a little soft before I move forward. I love this casserole. It's really hearty. It's actually a version of a casserole my friend Pastor Ryan used to make. It was sort of a Mexican lasagna. It's just full of deliciousness. All right, the onions are already getting nice and soft, so I'll add in some garlic, several cloves, and I just minced it really fine. And then I'll add some spices. A couple of teaspoons of chili powder, a teaspoon of paprika, beautiful color, and a teaspoon of ground cumin, which I love to put in so many of my Tex-Mex recipes. Now I'll just stir it, and I want those spices to really coat the onions. I don't want the tomatoes to completely fall apart, and that's why I wait until the onions have started to soften before I add them in. Now I'm just gonna stir them around and let them cook for a couple of minutes. Now, the tomato mixture could not look any more delicious, and it smells divine. I'm gonna go ahead and get it out of the pan. This adds such amazing flavor to the casserole. I just love it. Now I'm gonna crank the heat up on the stove, drizzle in a little olive oil, and I'll move on with the next step. There are a lot of steps and a lot of ingredients to this casserole, but nothing is complicated at all. I've got some boneless, skinless chicken breasts, and I just cut them into bite-sized pieces. And I'm gonna season them with the same seasonings I used for the onion mixture. This chicken could not look any more glorious. I'm gonna move forward and make a sauce out of this. And all I need to do is add a little water. And then I'll just stir the chicken around. Now the sauce just needs to bubble up and reduce a bit. Now to add to the chicken, I've got some pinto beans and kidney beans. I just drained them and rinsed them. And they'll just make the filling of the casserole that much more hearty. I'll just pour half of the jar of salsa verde all over the bottom of this casserole dish. I'll start with a layer of 6. They'll overlap and cover the bottom of the pan just perfectly. Now, I've just got some plain cooked rice, just regular long grain white rice, and I'm just putting it in a single layer on top of the tortillas. Nothing fancy about this. Now, what makes it fancy is this delicious tomato mixture I made, and I'll just sprinkle it over the rice. This is such an easy recipe. You can use frozen corn if that's what you got. If you have a little extra time, you can shave kernels off of the corn and use fresh. Anything works. All right, now it's time for this delicious chicken and bean mixture. It's been cooling and it looks so good. This is adding all the protein to the dish. I'll just sprinkle it on and spread it out. And I'll just pour on a nice layer. I'm gonna make sure it gets in the cracks. And then I'll add the rest of the jar of salsa verde. Just kind of go in between. Ooh, I love this mix. And then half of the cheese goes on. I love putting all the cheese toward the top because as it bakes in the oven, it just drips down into the cracks and makes it so gooey. All right, and then a second layer of corn tortillas. These sort of hold the whole casserole together. It has a base and a top. Now I'll end with a good layer of the homemade enchilada sauce. I'm not gonna use all of this for this casserole, but this sauce keeps in a jar in the fridge. And then the rest of the cheese. You have got to have a hearty appetite when you eat this dish. All right, the casserole is all assembled. Now I'm just gonna cover it with foil and keep it in the fridge until I head home. Then tonight, all I have to do is bake it at 375 degrees for 20 minutes. Take the foil off and cook it for another 15 to 20 minutes. Then when it's hot and bubbly, it's done. I'll let it sit a while so it'll hold up together when I serve it. Then everyone gets a great big helping with some sour cream on the side and a sprig of cilantro.
This is going to be a bacon cheeseburger casserole.
Well, I'm just gonna go get on the treadmill right now.
In this pan right here, I just browned off a couple of pounds of ground beef with onion powder, garlic powder, and oregano. And my trick for browning ground beef is a teaspoon of salt per pound of beef always works for me. A teaspoon of salt per pound of beef.
Good rule of thumb.
Kosher salt.
You want the whole red onion in there?
Yeah, the whole red onion, the whole head of iceberg lettuce.
Very good.
Drop it into your bowl, and then I'll show you how to dress it up really quick.
Got it.
All right, so in this pan that I cooked the ground beef, all I did was I added a little bit more fat, some flour, some heavy cream, a little bit of milk, and then to that, I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow mustard.
My favorite.
Katie, I know you love the yellow mustard.
I like this already. You have iceberg and yellow mustard.
Hello.
Two of my favorites.
We've got a 9x12 casserole dish. You don't need to butter it or anything, trust me. There's enough fat going on in here, nothing is gonna stick. Right down in the bottom, I like to add a little ladle, just to make sure nothing sticks to the bottom, because the first layer is going to be our ravioli. Now this is pre-made ravioli that you get at the grocery store. I love this because usually you just get it and you'll buy like some pesto or something and toss it, but this is a way to kind of do something different. So half of the ravioli goes down.
And speaking of freezer fix, you can get those raviolis in the freezer section, right?
Sure can, and then just defrost it in the fridge. Just kind of leave it over there overnight and it becomes nice and defrosted for you. So that goes down. Then over that, I'm gonna do some cheese. Just gonna put that beef on there first. So this is Swiss cheese. I love the way it melts. So that goes over the top. Now, put that in the bowl, and you're gonna work on the red onion, and I'm gonna have you toss it with some pickle juice, because that's gonna be kind of like that top flavor that we
pickle
need.
flavor.
Yeah, we need that.
Look
All
at
right,
this
over
guy.
top of the cheese here, I'm gonna turn that down. So I'm gonna put half of my beef, and then just kind of spread that out. Then I've got some Roma tomato, just seeded and chopped, a couple of those. Then I'm gonna put a little bit more sauce.
Sunny, using things like pickle juice, I mean, what a great money-saving tip.
Well, I mean, if you've got a jar of pickles and you're going into them constantly, you still got that juice left over. And I gotta tell you, there's sometimes that pickle juice jar is left over and I just wanna drink it. You know what I mean? So
Oh, my heavens.
I do, it's delicious. Even like the pickled jalapeno juice is so delicious. So if you have pickled jalapeno juice, it's perfect for this as well, to add a little bit of a bite. So
make a
more sauce
pickleback too,
down.
right?
Exactly.
Drink pickleback.
Hello, I love a pickleback with some whiskey.
It's all about using those things that you don't really think of, and that's how you can really save.
Exactly. All right, so another layer of our prepped ravioli down, and then American cheese over the top.
Chef Mauro's getting emotional with the onion.
Are you okay over there? Are you crying? All right, so more American cheese over the top. I love the way it melts, and obviously it's gonna go in a cheeseburger, so why not put it over the top? The rest of the beef.
Get that tear going. one solitary, una tortilla lágrima.
What?
One furtive tear coming down my cheek right now.
And then more tomatoes. Spread that out over the top. And then I had some bacon that I crisped. That's gonna go over the top.
Here comes the real tear.
For our bacon cheese for the bacon. You're gonna cry for the bacon. The tocino. And then shredded cheddar and Monterey Jack mix. Now,
Oh my gosh.
yes, you must get on the treadmill for
Well,
this
this is a
dish.
marathon. Yeah, you have this the night before the marathon.
Yeah.
Perfect, right?
This is perfect hibernation food. Now, at this point right here, you can put this in the freezer, wrap it tightly, and put it in the freezer, and it will go right into the oven like I'm gonna do it right now at 350. Now, unfrozen, this is gonna be about 30 to 35 minutes. Frozen, double the time. All right, so I'm gonna get this into the oven.
My
Oh, my
goodness.
God.
Here we go, here we go. Here's the money shot.
No, you're naughty! Oh my God, my brain doesn't know what to think right now.
All right, so then what we have here is, remember the lettuce with the red onion? You toss that with the pickle juice.
Yes, why not?
Just add that over the top.
Just on the top.
Nice mound. Get a nice mound on there.
nice mound.
Going
Yeah.
on there.
Go
Oh,
in
you
there.
use those hands.
Go in there.
And it's cheesy, and it's soft. It really does taste like a great cheeseburger.
Now, of course, twice-baked potatoes in any form have to have bacon, so I fried up a bunch, and I just need to chop it up. You know, you can use store-bought bacon bits for twice-baked potatoes, but I think nothing is like bacon you fry yourself, particularly when you're cooking for cowboys. They detect things like this. They might run me out of town if they find out I used artificial bacon pieces. Okay, I got the bacon all chopped. I'll let that sit for a sec. Now I've got to add a lot of butter to this casserole because I baked a lot of potatoes. So I've got 4 sticks of softened butter. I want it to be really, really soft. Then when the warm potato mixture goes in, it melts really quickly. Okay, and 4. Then a whole container of sour cream. Everyone likes sour cream with potatoes, let's face it. Okay, now for the potatoes. I've got 16 big baking potatoes, and I rubbed them in a little bit of vegetable oil and then baked them at 400 for about an hour. They're nice and tender, very hot. So I'll just cut it in half. Ooh, nice and hot. And I'll use a little towel so it won't be too hot in my hands. And I like to use just a big tablespoon to slowly scrape the insides out. Okay, that's the last potato scooped, and I've got nice little flecks of potato skin all throughout. So now I'll season all of this. It's a lot of potato, so it needs a good amount of salt, and of course, plenty of black pepper. And then I also like to add some seasoned salt. It just adds a few different flavors, a little bit of extra saltiness. All right, that looks great. Now I'll throw in all of this delicious bacon. Okay, now the green onions go in. I also grated a lot of cheese, a couple of cups of cheddar jack, and I'll sprinkle that over the top. And then I definitely need some milk in here so that everything will mix together well. So I'll just pour in a couple of cups of milk. All right, now I just need to break out my muscles. I've got a potato masher and I'll just go right in and smush all this together. This takes a little while. There are a lot of ingredients in here. The potatoes don't have to be completely smooth, but I don't want there to be any huge chunks. Okay, looks perfect. Get the extra off. Now I'm gonna put all of this into a big foil container. I think it'll all fit. Whenever I'm making twice-baked potatoes for a crowd, it can get a little much to refill the skins after the mixture is done. This is the perfect solution. Just put it into a big pan, warm it up, and it's ready to serve. This looks amazing. There is not a cowboy on the ranch or a kid on the ranch that won't go crazy for this. Okay, now I'll just smooth out the surface. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is a great dish to make if you're having a big party because you can actually make it the day ahead and pop it in the oven when you're ready. I wasn't that organized. I did it the same day. Okay, now I'm gonna sprinkle more cheese over the top. The potato mixture has plenty inside, but I like for the top to have a nice layer of melted cheese. This is cheddar jack, but you can use all cheddar, all jack, or you could do pepper jack. That's always delicious too. Okay, now this just needs to go back into the oven for about 30 minutes until it's warmed through. Cheesy twice-baked potato casserole. Here are the ribs.
I'm making a slow cooker hash brown casserole. So we're gonna start off with a bag of frozen hash browns. Got some onions going in there. Ham, a little diced ham, red bell pepper, and I've got a little grated cheddar cheese here. So I've got 6 eggs here, whole milk going in. Put in sour cream. I got a little garlic powder going in there. Some salt, black pepper, cream cheese. Okay, goes right into our slow cooker. Mix the whole thing. 4 hours on high or 6 hours on low. An hour before it's done, put your cheese on the top of it.
It is so wonderful. It's an all-in-one main course. It's got a great shortcut ingredient, and it's make ahead. Check, check, and check. I'm gonna assemble the casserole today and bake it tomorrow. I'm just browning some breakfast sausage with some finely diced onion. I'm gonna let the sausage cook all the way through. And while it does, I'm gonna grab that shortcut ingredient. Frozen tater tots. So easy. All I need to do is get them into a buttered baking dish. This perfect layer of tater tots is gonna get topped with the brown sausage and onions. And it's fine that this is hot. It's gonna have a chance to cool down before I add the other ingredients. Once the casserole bakes, those tater tots just turn into potatoes. You would never know they were frozen. Okay, that is all the sausage. Now I'll start working on the egg mixture. This casserole has a lot of cheese, so I'm gonna grate up some cheddar and some Monterey Jack. It's probably the cheese combination that I use the most in my kitchen. Okay, that's enough cheddar. I'll start grating the pepper jack. Love pepper jack cheese, it's so creamy and I love the spice. Okay, that's it for the cheese. Get it out of here. I've got 4 eggs that I cracked into the pitcher. And I'll add a cup of milk. It's whole milk just to make the whole thing a little more rich. And speaking of rich, a little bit of half and half, just about half a cup or so. Now the sausage is really flavorful and plenty salty, but I'm gonna add just a little bit of seasoned salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon. And for some spice, a little cayenne pepper. Really simple. And then I'll whisk this together. Okay, that is nice and mixed. So I'll add some green and red bell pepper. I seeded it and pulled out the membranes, and then I diced them really fine. Okay, the last thing to add to the egg mixture is half of this cheese. The other half is gonna go on top of the casserole. I'll give it a quick stir. And then this beautiful concoction gets poured over the sausage, which is cool by now. And look at all that chunky wonderfulness. Make sure it's all even. And then the rest of this cheese goes on top. This is a cheesy, cheesy dish. Now I've just got to cover it with foil, stash it in the fridge overnight, and tomorrow when it comes to baking and serving, well, that's going to be a cinch. I'll get the casserole into the oven at 350 degrees for 25 minutes. Then I'll take the foil off and bake it for another 20 minutes. Then when it's hot and bubbling, I'll get it out and onto the counter. And everyone will have a lovely, hearty helping. Oh boy, check out all the tater tots and sausagey, oniony, eggy cheesiness.